Hey everyone, welcome back to Keto and Crime. Today I have got yesterday's summary for the Vallow case taking place in Idaho. This would be Wednesday's testimony. As usual, there was no court on Monday. Yesterday I brought you Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. So this is what we're going to go over today. Also, I have a great fun video coming out this weekend where I sit down with Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment, and we just discussed Scream and Star Wars and Hollywood in general. So it's just a really great, light little video to break the monotony of and the horrible things we're hearing about in this case. So if you don't know me, my name is Tracy. I do dark history, true crime, horror movies, and just entertainment in general. I also change my tree up with every holiday. I'm still stuck on Easter here, but that will be changing very, very soon to a patriotic theme for a Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. And that's where we are. So if you're new here, welcome. I hope I earn your subscription. If you are a channel member, a subscriber, a Patreon member, thank you so much for everything. I could not do this without you. And so with that being said, let's jump into Wednesday in the Vallow case. Okay, so Wednesday started off about 8:45 a.m. when Rexburg Police Detective 𝗙𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗪𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 courtroom at that time, and he started to go through more financial documents. After 𝗙𝗪𝗻 finished her cross-exam and redirect, and 𝗙𝗂𝗏 had finished his entire testimony, we went into a series of people, including law enforcement and Social Security Administration people, that went over financials. Lori's, Tylee's, JJ's, Charles, and so we're still in that docket here of financials. So this will not be the most titillating of testimony, but it is a nice break from the gore. So he's presented with a loan document for the Jeep Wrangler that was seized by Rexburg police. This, of course, was Charles Vallow's Jeep. It says that the vehicle was purchased in April of 2019. 𝗙𝗨 began paying $599 a month in June. Automatic payments were made in June, July, and August. And the September car payment from 𝗙𝗨's account came back as insufficient funds. So there was proof of that. Casantis says the department seized the Jeep on November 4th, 2019. It was never reported missing because its driver was obviously deceased at that time. Then we move to a email dated November 8th, 2009 that Chad Daybell sent to Julie Black. A realtor in Hawaii. It says they were interested in seeing a specific property there in Hawaii. So this is the time they were in Hawaii. They were obviously planning to move there. And it was sent 3 days after Lori and Chad were married. Then we go through some pretty boring stuff where it shows her internet and cable bill attached to her Rexburg apartment, which was number 175. And also some documentation showing she had actually leased number 107, where Alex lived, but she herself lived in 175. Then we have a Windstream Communications bill that showed IP addresses associated with 𝗙𝗨's Venmo account, and that the IP address was registered to a Residence Inn in Kansas City, Missouri. And this is when the $100 was sent from 𝗙𝗂𝗏 to 𝗙𝗂𝗏 from 𝗙𝗨's account with a message, "We love you." Lori was with Melanie Boudreau, her niece, in Kansas City that day, and that Venmo transaction was made using 𝗙𝗨's phone. However, we know that 𝗙𝗨 had no record of being alive after September. So this was probably sent by Lori, as we can guess. Then there was a bill from that Residence Inn in Kansas City, Missouri, showing that Melanie had leased the room and that there were 2 guests and Lori was the other occupant, showing that no, 𝗙𝗨 was not there. The prosecutor then asked Casantis if he ever did any pharmaceutical searches when J.J. Vallow was missing. He said that they did. He submitted requests to agencies in Arizona, Hawaii, Montana, and Idaho. There were no records of any prescriptions being filled for JJ in any of those states during 2019. So either they had all of his medicine a surplus, or they didn't need the medication. So then they skipped to a September 9th, 2019 email that Lori sent to her accountant, explaining that Charles had died and she needed all tax information sent to her new address. This was literally sent hours after 𝗙𝗍 was buried, according to police. Then we look at a ton of flight records showing Lori's flights between Hawaii, Arizona, and Idaho. We show that she flew from Hawaii to Phoenix and then to Idaho Falls on the day of Tammy Daybell's funeral in October 23rd. And then after a brief break, more flight records showing that there was lots of flights for Chad, Lori, and Melanie, but nothing for JJ and 𝗙𝗍. So then they have the order form from 𝗥𝗏𝗄 that showed October 15th, 2019, Lori ordered basically her own engagement ring, the malachite titanium ring, and that was shipped to Chandler, Arizona. A credit card initially used for that was declined. Of course, that was Charles, I'm sure's credit card that she was attempting to lose. So basically the key of this is that the children suddenly disappeared into thin air while Lori was going about her marriage and moving and daily life business as normal. Next up is Mike Douglas, a forensic accountant working with the FBI, basically going over all of Lori and 𝗙𝗍's accountings where a lot of the fraud came in. He is the next witness, and he is missing from the court initially. They do find him, and Assistant DA Tiana Rawlings is questioning Douglas. So the first exhibit in connection with Douglas's testimony is a timeline that was prepared by the FBI showing 𝗙𝗍's life from when her father, Joseph Ryan, passed away. Next was through financial records, something that was constructed showing how financial transactions differed for both children at the time of their father's death, that is, Joseph Ryan and then later Charles Vallow, moving forward. Basically, it showed how finances changed up about that time, and Douglas was asked if the dates are accurate. He said they were, and that to him it shows grand theft timeline where not only were their lives taken and their finances taken, but they were robbed. Next, he showed that Lori held a $2 million life insurance policy where she removed JJ and 𝗙𝗍's names as beneficiaries and added only Kobe, and that on her application to lease her apartments in Idaho, she wrote that she was receiving approximately $5,700 a month in Social Security benefits, and then showed again the trail that was already established showing how the bank accounts were moved around between a ridiculous amount of bank accounts. Then they show how 𝗙𝗍's Jeep, the payment in September bounced because of lack of funds, and that JJ's Social Security funds started getting paid into Lori's account around that same time. And then, of course, all the shenanigans with her getting 𝗙𝗍's funds transferred to her account as well. And then we get a whole list of the payments that 𝗙𝗍's Social Security went to Lori in fraud. That is October, November, December, January of 2020. And JJ's fraudulent payments to Lori were October, November, December, and January. Lori's payments were on October 16th. Were on October, November, December, and also January. So she was also getting widow's benefits as well. Then they get into the subject of Chad Daybell's finances, and we see that pretty much Lori was paying to finance their entire life. In fact, Douglas said that it's more of a matter of what he didn't find on Mr. Daybell's accounts than what he did. It was, of course, very obvious that Lori was funding their entire life. And they talk about the increase on Tammy Daybell's life insurance around September 8th. And then after Tammy's death, you see Chad's actually starting to spend some money now that he's got the life insurance, and he took the entire family to Knott's Berry farm. Said that Chad filed for the life insurance within days of Tammy's death. He attempted to refinance his house on October 2009, and the life insurance payouts were deposited into Chad's account twice in November. So he did not waste any time spending the money, requesting the money, and starting to make financial decisions to make his life a whole lot easier, including now paying for his second wife, Lori Vallow. Douglas now steps down. There was no cross-exam on either of these financial experts, either the detective or the forensic accountant, even though they do reserve the right to call them at a later time. And at that point, they broke for lunch, which was about a 90-minute, almost 2-hour lunch, as opposed to the hour that is usually allotted. The next witness called by the prosecution is firefighter, Chandler, Arizona firefighter Scott Cowden. He's basically here to answer some questions about some of the shenanigans in Arizona, namely the shooting of Charles Vallow on July 11th, 2019. Basically, Cowden, who's also a paramedic, testified that they found Charles Vallow lying on the floor with an obvious gunshot wound, that it was obvious to them that no attempt to perform any type of life-saving treatment, that is CPR, had been attempted. So we all have heard the famous 911 call that Alex made after shooting Charles, and he was basically being very argumentative and, very slow to react when the dispatcher mentioned, oh, you might want to do CPR on him. Then the prosecution wants to introduce a 7-page PowerPoint presentation on Charles Vallow's death. Lori's attorneys object. There's a long sidebar where they discuss. The main argument is that she's not being yet tried for anything that happened in Arizona, and we should stick to the Idaho case. But the prosecution alleges that all of this fits the whole overall murder conspiracy of Idaho, and in the end, the Judge Boyce, does allow the presentation. In conjunction with the PowerPoint, detective with the Chandler Police Department, 𝗟𝗍𝗄𝗏, is called to the stand and then begins testimony about what they saw when they received the call for the shooting of Charles Vallow. After a description that matches the firefighters, we talk about Alex Cox and Lori, and they basically show Lori's movements that day as recorded by cell phone records, from taking JJ to school at Lawrence Life Academy, as well as stopping at Burger King, and then coming back to the home about 8:48 a.m. There's some discrepancy about how long it would have taken her to get JJ to school and then stop at Burger King. A little bit of discussion about that. And then they just went into an analysis of Charles Vallow's cell phone and talking about the 911 call as well. On cross-exam, Archibald asks the detective who made the 911 call, and he responds Alex Cox, and then the defense dismisses him as they have no further questions for him. Then the prosecution calls Detective Sandra 𝗙𝗂𝗏 from Chandler Police Department. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. Please forgive me. I'll just call her Sandra. And they again begin questioning her about what she observed on July 19th at the scene. Again, very, very close to what has already been heard. Also, one of the main things that Sandra said that she observed was that both Lori and 𝗙lie were standing near Charles' rental car. Lori appeared very calm, not emotional, just kind of hanging out, and seemed to be having a generally perky conversation. It was at that time she learned that she was the ex-wife of the victim and the sister of the perpetrator. She said she was just very nonchalant. She said Lori said that Charles had been renting the home, but they were separated, that he had been living in Houston where his work was, and that he had returned out there to see their son, JJ, and said that was some sort of our disagreement about the care of JJ. She then told Sandra that JJ was special needs, and that Charles had been a few minutes late that morning, and that she had to leave with JJ immediately, and Charles was not being very cooperative, and that JJ seemed very reluctant to speak to his father, touch his father, just a lot of stuff. She then told Sandra that she had asked Alex to spend the night, and all this is from Lori's interrogation the day of. I did a reaction to that video. I'll put it up here. You can also find that video on the East Idaho News YouTube channel as well. She had asked Alex to stay because Charles was coming. They had been into it, that he always had his gun, and that at one point, 𝗙𝗍, after the altercation, 𝗙𝗍 had come out of the room with the bat, but she said this was all secondhand because she wasn't there. Then she goes through her interview with 𝗙𝗍, much restating the same facts. After a 30-minute recess, the prosecution calls April Raymond, who is a friend of Lori's from Hawaii. There was a brief sidebar and some discussion among the attorneys before she took the stand, but then the testimony did get underway. They basically also cautioned jurors not to react to any stories or tweets or anything on the case, just as a general practice, because there was some hubbub outside the courtroom. As I'm sure there's probably a lot of people standing outside there. Raymond was asked if she had been contacted by any reporters about doing interviews. She said she had given them the directive from the prosecutor's office about not being able to participate. So just making sure that witnesses aren't talking outside the courtroom. There was more argument about whether or not Raymond had given any interviews, and then that was pretty much put to rest. And then prosecutor Rachel Smith begins the testimony. She said that she met Lori in Hawaii at church, of course, in 2016. They were friends outside the church. Their kids played together, and they celebrated holidays together. She said that Lori and Charles eventually left Hawaii in 2019 to go back to the mainland, namely Arizona. It was the weekend before Valentine's Day. She said she received a call from Lori. She said Lori said she was in Hawaii with 𝗙𝗍, and that Lori was leaving Charles. Lori reached out again saying they needed a place to stay, and Lori and 𝗙𝗍 evidently stayed with Miss Raymond. Lori told Raymond that Charles had an affair. She was no longer with Charles, and that Charles had turned into a demon named Ned Schneider. Now, how many demon names have we heard thus far? We've heard 𝗙𝗂𝗏, Garrett, and now Ned. So these people can't even get their demons straight. It's just, I mean, if you're going to do anything worthwhile in life, get the names of the demons straight. I mean, if anything, you're going to need to name drop in hell, but come on. But she began to talk more about some of Lori's rantings about that. They ended up having lunch at the 𝗙𝗪𝗁 Cafe there in Kauai, and she spoke about Melanie Gibb and some other things as well. Raymond did note that Lori's beliefs about Jesus changed a little after visiting Hawaii. I'm sure they did. And Raymond made sure to say that she does not believe in the multiple lives or any of the theories of the Daybell or Vallow ilk. And then the prosecution stops and the defense cross-examination begins. She was asked about the light and dark scale. Again, she reiterated that she had never met Melanie Gibb and that she did not believe in any of this stuff. And then she is dismissed from the stand, and the court was recessed for the day. So there you go. A lot of finances showing real movements and what happened after the deaths of certain people, and how the story gets even more crazy. But I will be back really soon as more updates come out. I really appreciate everyone that's coming in and listening to these shorter summaries, like I said, of about 5 to 6 hours of testimony. I hope I'm getting it right. If I've gotten anything wrong, I apologize. I listen to the recordings. I look at the East Idaho News breakdowns, and I take notes, and that's what I'm looking at. So I hope that you're enjoying these. I will continue to do them, and until next time, keep on crime.